welcome everybody. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. So sales and looking at your sales strategies and how you ramp up when you're a startup. I've had a look at most of your websites and a little bit about your businesses. Some of the website links didn't open up and others had a holding message, but I've had a look at most of them. And I think there's a bit of a mix here, isn't there? There's a mix from really in the early startup stage all the way through to late startup. I know a few of you are pretty late startup. So put your hand up if you would count yourself as a late startup. It's just, I know some people are absent. Put your hand up if you would consider yourself right at the early doors. All right. And just, if you're now just starting to get traction. Okay, so we've got a bit of a mixture there. So what I don't want is for this to be me just talking. I've got some stuff I'm going to share with you on my screen and that, but please, feel free to take yourself off mute and fire in a question anytime. I think when I'm sharing, I won't be able to see if you put your hand up, so just jump in and do it. So question for you, last question, then we'll get stuck in. Do any of you come from a sales background? Okay, so we have 2, okay, 3. Paul, Rory, and Ollie. Perfect, and the rest of you don't. Just gives me a little bit of an idea. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to use a tool, and be patient with me. It's a new tool to me. Using a tool called Miro, where I am going to... Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about sales first of all, and then a little bit more specifically about your business and stuff. So the first thing to realize is that if you don't come from a sales background, not all sales is the same. And now that sounds like a really obvious statement, but the number of companies that I talk to where they've looked at sales, they've even gone out to get a salesperson, and they don't know what type of salesperson they need. So they put in a salesperson and they've got completely the wrong approach, and then they don't, they wonder why it doesn't work. So a little bit about the sales arena. So if we think of sales as a spectrum, there's loads of different types of sales, but I've made it really simple here. We'll look at transactional, we'll look at consultative. And coming at it from a buyer's point of view. So in the transactional arena, a buyer knows what they want. It tends to be, I need a widget. What type of widget do I need? And where's the best place I'm going to get that widget? So short sales cycle, product led. What am I going to base that decision on, that buying decision on in this arena?
Price.
Price is a big one. What else?
Quality.
Sometimes.
Convenience?
Yes. Price and availability or convenience. Think Amazon Prime in this. I mean, they have, and in the business to consumer world, they have just mopped up in this space, this transactional space. Go over to the consultative side. In this one, in the extreme of it, a buyer doesn't even know they have a need. But most of the time, they have some type of need or want. There's more than one option. And they're not only willing to have a conversation, most of the time they feel they need to have a conversation to figure out which is the best option for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So where buyers used to be, and then I'll show you where they are. So where they used to be on this curve was almost like a normal distribution curve. Yeah. Somewhere here, but most were here in the middle, and that's where companies built their sales groups. And the thing with that is you could take any type of sales approach and you would hit somebody. And when the market was really buoyant and there's a lot of money floating in the market, you had companies doing really well with not that great a strategy or an approach. Okay, times have changed dramatically. So let me just rub that all out. Sorry. Times have changed dramatically, and where they are now is like that. That should be equal there. I'm not a great drawer, but they've polarized. They've gone into the transactional arena or the consultative arena, and this is true for business to consumer and business to business. The same company can be here and here, the same person can be here and here for different things, but they tend to know what type of approach they need. And that means that the companies who are still sitting here with their sales approach are in no man's land. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop sharing for a little minute just so I can come back to you and see all of you. So if we think about that, have a think about where you need your company to be on that arena. And the thing to realize is one place isn't better than the other. They're just different. Okay. So if you think about how many of you think that what you do and what you have is more in the transactional side of things?
I have some products that
two.
are. I have some that are and some that aren't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that you, Danielle? Yep. So you've
Yeah.
some that are and some that aren't.
Yeah.
I've been purely consultative for 4 years, and now I've created a transactional product, and I don't know what to do.
Oh, Rory, you're not alone. You're not alone. So how many of you feel that your business needs to be consultative? Okay. All right. So there's a difference there, isn't there? And here's the thing, Rory. If you take a transactional approach in a consultative arena, it doesn't really work, and they tend to start commoditizing what you have, even if it's not a commodity. They tend to commoditize it, and you get dragged into price discussions. If you take a consultative approach in a transactional arena, your cost of sale is too high, and the margins aren't there. Yeah, is that ringing true?
Yeah.
People? Yeah.
Yes.
So what you need to do is figure out where you are in that spectrum and build your sales approach to match. Yeah?
Yeah.
Makes sense. And interestingly, in the transactional side, and we're not going to get into this because I know we've only got 35, 40 minutes, and I'll probably create more questions than answers and stuff, but I'm going to try and cover quite a bit today and get you thinking. In that transactional side, you saw that I said it's product-led. Yep. Ollie, did you have a question?
No. I'm just saying hello to Thomas.
All right, sorry. In that transactional side, the conversation with people tends to be quite product-led. That's where you have, your features and your benefits and that type of stuff. In the consultative side, and this is where I think some of you might be getting your approach slightly wrong at the minute. In the consultative side, it is not product-led. And by product, I also mean service. We'll lump service into product. It is the conversation is led by what's happening in their business. And when I've looked at some of your websites, if you're offering a service and you need to be in that consultative arena, I think some of you are leading with your product. And it needs to be led by the business issue that they're dealing with.
Mm.
What do you think?
Powerful stuff. Yeah, spot on for me.
Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Right, I'm going to change the angle of this slightly. I feel as if I'm short and like really short. So I'm just over 5 foot on a good day. All right. So that's a little thing there of making sure you understand the difference. And if you are at the stage where you want to bring in a salesperson, then you need to make sure you're bringing in a salesperson from the arena that you want your business to be in, whether it's transactional and consultative. Okay. The only other thing I'll say about bringing in salespeople is when you're a startup or a small business, be really careful about recruiting people that have worked in a big company. Why do you think I say that?
More corporate.
A little bit more corporate.
I think because of the speed as well in which you can do things, that you're not, there's more sort of people to consult. It's just a different sort of environment that you've been used to working in. Whereas when you're in a smaller business, things need to happen quickly.
Yeah, and Danielle, that is true. The reason I'm saying it's even more basic than that, in a big company, there's usually been a bit of a machine happening there. And a lot of times the brand opens the door.
I've had experience, Cheryl, of hiring someone from a huge company into a business I had, and they couldn't believe the number of transactions we were doing compared to what they were doing. Obviously, they were doing less, but their average order values were greater. But they could not get over how hard we worked compared to the environment they'd come from. They were absolutely stunned. And they also couldn't live with the fact there wasn't much bureaucracy.
Yeah. A lot of times it's just they've had leads handed to them. Whereas in a smaller business, you have to go and create the leads.
Yeah.
You have to go find. So, you know, roll your sleeves up and be willing to do, you know, in a small business, my pet hate is when I hear somebody say, well, that's not really my job. That's when I moved to advanced management, which involves a large stick. You know, it's just like, no, in a small business, everything is everybody's job. You know, so that's a little bit on just your sales approach and your and thinking about when you're recruiting people in, or if you're recruiting people in. So then I wanted to get into more specifically about your businesses and your types of business. So I've looked, like I said, I've looked at quite a few of your websites, and I'm going to ask you for forgiveness at a minute. So I'm going to look, I've actually picked some things off your websites not to have a look at today. You with how you build your company and appeal to a wider audience. Okay, so you with me on this?
Yeah.
All right, let me go back to sharing my little mural and tell me, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to take you back in time to a book that's a real oldie called Crossing the Chasm. Has anybody read it?
No.
No? Any of you that are in...
Yeah, great read. It's a great read.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant. And anybody that is in any way involved with technology, you should absolutely read it. But the premise of it is it was really written around the dot-com bubble and looking at why so many companies in that dot-com bubble started up, looked as if they were going to be great, and then never materialized into anything. And I think the lessons of it are as true today as they were then. And I'm going to adapt it a little bit to some of the types of businesses that you guys have. So what happened with the startups in the dot-com bubble was they appealed to people who were like them, right? So you had a lot of techie people, and they had these really innovative ideas. And what would happen is they would get people who were the innovators who would be, oh yeah, I really like this, you know, and they wanted to be right at the start of something and trialing it and bringing it on board to their businesses. So they would get those. They would get some of the early adopters who were like, yeah, you know, I'm willing to take a risk on it. And that's when they thought their business was worth millions. Because like, look, I've got traction. And what happened was there's this chasm. Can you see that chasm? If I take this away, sorry, take that away and that way. See this chasm here? And they would fall down it. They never figured out how to sell to the early majority. And that's because the buying motives of the greater mass of people, whether it's business to consumer or business to business, the buying motives of a mainstream market are incredibly different to the startups or to the early adopters and the innovators. And what you have to think about with your business is, are we hanging out with people who are our tribe? Am I hanging out with people who just speak my language? Or am I hanging out with people who are that mainstream where I can figure out how to market my business or message my business to that wider stream? Is this making sense? I can't see you, so you have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so
Cheryl, just one question here, and I don't know if anyone else is thinking it, but if your market is for the innovators and the early adopters, and there's enough of them, does that then change that chasm?
Yeah, it does. It changes it, but you need to make sure, you need to identify that that is where your market's going to stay.
Gotcha. So that early adapters and innovators would actually be the early majorities of customers, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
And what you have to do is shift and figure out, how do I cross this chasm here? Because if it's really cutting edge, you'll get the innovators, but how do you get into the early adopters? Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that answer that question, Karen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we all like likes, don't we? You know, we post things on social media and stuff, and you get all these likes and stuff. I'm going to say to you, be careful, beware of too many likes. And I don't mean that in terms of people hitting a like button. I mean in terms of who we're spending time with in our business. If we're spending time with people that think like us, speak like us, look like us, we are in danger of being our own little bubble, and you can't scale it. You won't cross that chasm. The number of companies, and I counted 4 of you that on your website say you're going to change the world. One of the things, well, I'm going to be really flippant, so just go with me on this, because that's just me. You know, you go over to California, you go over to Seattle, there's loads of companies there that were going to change the world, and now they're in administration. You have to be careful that the language you're using appeals to your audience. And one of the things in the UK market really doesn't handle evangelism very well. Now, I'm aware that I might be upsetting some people, so let me come back to you and see what you think. The UK market, there's nothing that will switch the UK market off quicker than somebody who is evangelical about their service or product.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
Would you say that that's different for different generations? For example, millennials that are very influenced by US kind of materials. I've personally noticed a difference in my, like, you know, they're far more, seem to be far more responsive to the sort of change the world kind of messages than, say, baby boomers and Generation X.
They are, but they're bombarded with it, and so many companies are saying they're going to change the world. Actually, it's just become a what I call blah.
Yeah, okay.
It's just become a, and here's the interesting thing about the millennials and stuff, Danielle. When they look at, and a lot of research, millennials come out of America, or comes out of America. Younger millennials, what do you think are the brands they associate with the most?
The social networking.
Yeah, and Apple, Google, you know, that type of stuff. Millennials are old enough to be married with kids and stuff now. So as they get older, what brands do you think they associate more with in America? What do you think is the #1 brand they associate with in America? The older ones that are married.
Amazon.
Coca-Cola.
Walmart.
Ah,
You know, there's a real shift there from the, you know, let's hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and we're going to change the world, to, oh God, I've got to pay bills now, and I've got a family, and I've got responsibilities, and
Cheryl, what about the body coach? So Joe Wicks, I don't know if you know him. He's,
yeah,
because he said, I'm on a mission to transform people, make the world fitter. My mission is to get the world fitter, happier, and healthier. Which isn't, it's not changed. I mean, is that changing the world? He seems to be doing quite well.
Yeah, but we'll come on to him in a little bit. My mother-in-law fancies him something rotten, so she has him and my daughter do his workouts from YouTube each day, and I'm amazed how many times she picks the one with him with no shirt on. You know, but he has a simple message, and actually, Rory, he's a great example. He has a really simple message. Now, I'm not trying to burst your bubbles here. I'm really not. I'm trying to bring you back to reality of, you know, it's all well and good. And you may feel, right, we want change, but you have to message that in a really simple way, and a way that doesn't switch people off. Yeah, because if you have people putting barriers up, they don't listen, and they don't take in what you're trying to tell them. So simplicity is the key, right? Now, Harry, I wish Harry was here, because he'll tell you this story. It sticks in his mind from what I told him a couple of years ago. What is the most widely read business publication in the world?
FT?
Yep, the Financial Times. Did you know that the front page is written deliberately so the average 15-year-old can understand it? Deliberately written that way. So let's think about that for a minute. Who are the main audience for the FT? Who are their main readership?
Bankers, investment bankers, accountants, anyone associated with financial services.
Yeah, business people. You know, business people. So they're not dumb. Why would they make it so the front page, the average 15-year-old can understand it?
So it never puts anyone off who picks it up, or someone goes, actually, I feel quite intellectual reading this because I understand
it. Maybe subliminally, but simpler than that. When do they read it normally? Forget COVID. In the normal world, when do they read the FT?
commute. On their commute.
On their commute. On their commute. So they want to absorb the information quickly and not have to think about it. And the minute you have somebody thinking, I don't really understand that, you've completely lost them. You've completely lost them. And you think about exec summaries and stuff. The higher up you go in an organization, the less time they have, and the more they want bullet points and simple messages. So I'm going to show you a couple of things. I've lifted some stuff off your websites, and we'll have a little look. And then I'm going to give you a little formula for you to think about when you're trying to message what your business does. Okay? So let me go to this.
Everyone's open, it's not theirs.
I was thinking that. I was wondering whether I wished she had picked mine or not picked mine.
I'm happy if you pick mine.
It'd be good if yours is picked.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh.
Right, so you'll see in a little minute. So this is my golden rule of sales. Confused customers do not buy. Okay, that's your golden rule. Confused customers do not buy. So here's a little formula that you can think about for your messaging. Okay, my business X is developing Y to help, and you state there who your audience is and what problem they solve with, and then whatever what we call your secret sauce is. So I'll give you an example. I have launched a company in the UK and Europe called Sales Director Central. So if somebody says to me, well, what is that? I'd say our business Sales Director Central is developing a bank of high-hitting sales directors to help small businesses who can't afford a sales director full-time, and we provide the intellect for them to do that. Does that make sense? Or we're figuring out what to say there, but we, we'll provide them with a heavy hitter part-time and accelerate their sales growth.
Yeah.
So you can see how that's really simple. Yeah. So let's have a look and see if some of yours are simple. So here we go. Let me show. So this one here, Chaser. I'm not sure, is anybody from Chaser on here?
Yeah, I'm working as an advisor, so I'll be able to relate that and answer some questions.
All right, so Gary, I mean, I'm from Belfast. I went to Loughborough, I don't know many big words, but I'm not daft. And my husband works in IT. He's a global strategy advisor for Oracle. He read that 3 times and said to me, yeah, it's not clear what they do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree reading it. I'm not sure where this sits within it, so I'll definitely have
when you try to go onto the website's obviously still being built, and this is the holding statement.
Gotcha.
Now, look at the length of that sentence. It's just like...
Yeah.
Is anybody else, I mean, again, I can't see you, so say yes. Is anybody else reading that going, I don't know what the hell that means?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Yeah. And the funny thing is the comma bit virtually says, in my opinion, says more than the rest of it. The on-demand delivery by everyone. And everything else around it sort of doesn't, yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So, hold on, sorry. Come out of that. Here we go. Who's Doppler? Danielle, is that you?
That's me.
All right. So
Yay.
I thought this was really funny because you said we are often asked, what does Doppler do? We help you do what you want. No one liked that answer, so we created. And then what you've basically done is rephrase, we help you do what you want, into loads of different things. So when I read that, I'm really not sure what you do. Are you a coaching company, physical space? Do you rent out offices, online courses? So are you a training company? There's books there. I don't know what a dop in or a dop up is. So I'm now confused. And when I'm confused, remember, confused customers don't buy. So I'm going to, and apologies, Danielle, I'm going to go to, I don't know why hold on, here we go. This here will go into focus in a minute. All right. So I thought when I read your website, the thing I came away from it with was, and sorry, yours is the one that I've picked here. I came away from it thinking, whatever she does it with passion, but I'm just not really sure what it is. So it should focus in a little second. It's still a bit blurry on mine. There you go. You got it?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So when I then scroll down, let me come out of that and just go on to this. When I then scroll down, each individual bit looks okay, But here it's like, find out what about Doppler emission, how we're going to change the world, leaving no one behind. So then I have to click in to figure out what your mission is. But is that different from up here? I don't really know. And it seemed, and then there was a journal pad. So I was looking, thinking, well, I'm not really sure what the crux of the company is. And it seemed as if it was a little bit like, if I call it chasing the shiny ball, it's like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll stick a page on that. Or, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll stick that in. And it didn't flow together. I just came away confused.
Cheryl, just a question on this, because I think it's quite important, is I think as startups, we tend to think that if we have an idea and we don't tell people that we're doing it, then either someone else is going to take it or we're going to miss a sales opportunity. So is it going back to basics and highlighting the one main thing that you do, or do you highlight more so everyone, so it's building something for everyone?
It's a brilliant question. Brilliant question. I'll answer it quickly, and then it's actually what I was going to, once I show you one more thing, it's what I was going to come back to. And you make your statement for what will be your core. And then any peripheral stuff or any other stuff that you can do can be brought into the conversation. But you make your statement on what is the core offering that you're doing and the core people that you're offering it to.
Gotcha.
Okay, so there's two more things I wanted to show you. Danielle, you're off the hook now.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that though.
Right, so is the person from aisle 3 here?
I am, but you might not want to look at that. That's not my company. It's not my website.
Well, that's
I think
the link
they do a decent job of selling flexi bins in supermarkets.
All right, well then we don't need to talk about, but Ollie, that's the link that you sent me through, was to that website.
Your aisle3.co.uk.
No, aisle-3.co.
Ah, okay. That's my bad.
No, it's okay. But actually, let's use it as an example, because then it won't offend anybody.
Okay.
All right. This is a product sale. It's a simple product, yeah? What it doesn't do, I'm glad it's not yours, because it was a really rubbish website. Basically, it just has this product there, has a couple of features, and then says, do you want to buy it? Are you ready to buy? Click here. You know, it doesn't tell the person what they'll gain from it. You know, things like increase your basket size by having this at the till, or, you know, nothing that would be the benefits of it. And then the last one I am going to pick on.
Cheryl, can I ask on that though? Because actually it is quite interesting. Yeah, it is an awful site. I suppose they're a trade business selling a product who probably use that site as just because it's not credible. If you don't have a website, I bet you they probably don't even need it. Does it make a difference if you know, we're using a website as a way to introduce ourselves to people, or as a way for it to be a backup in terms of the second engagement?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times your website, people use it to just check up on who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Can you bring that up in a couple of minutes? And I will explain to you where usually a website sits in the sales approach. This is the last one. So, Gary, this is you, isn't it?
Yeah, and straight away I can see I wrote it because it's in my language, if you know what I mean. But go on.
Yeah. Can anybody spot what is wrong with this? No? There's a clue in the word that's above the frame. Can you see it where it says grammar?
I don't think we can see that, can we? But yeah, the grammar's probably terrible.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Again, let me do. I am nitpicking here, Gary, but you told me to pick on you, so
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
nitpicking. Actually, I think your website is can be quite clear. You just need to get the grammar right in it, because otherwise, I was more focused on the grammatical errors than what the message was.
Yeah,
So,
no, I totally agree. I mean, that's actually a quote me speaking, which probably doesn't come across well when it's actually down in writing. How important do you think grammar is? Because I think, and this might not be to everyone, but I think grammar comes across as a bit nowadays, a bit more snobbish. Maybe I'm just thinking that if someone picks on a way something's spelt or said, is it as important as telling what the actual thing is? But that's a personal opinion, that's all.
do you know, we speak in a really different way to the way we write. So the way you write can be conversational. You just need to make sure it's grammatically correct.
Yeah.
So a really simple thing is, it's not less buttons, it's fewer buttons.
Yeah. So Cheryl, just no, you're totally right. I have two customers. One I have is drivers, taxi drivers.
Yeah, they won't care about the grammar.
No, so that's how I use that. But you're totally right, because this is for customers which will care about grammar. I'm still in the framework of this is how I used to speak to drivers. Drivers love it. They love it that you can't spell and that you can't talk properly.
Yeah.
So,
and do you know what? It's just knowing it's not about being. I'm being picky with you there because you told me to be. It's not about being picky or snobby. It's about removing the barriers for me concentrating on what your message is. How many of you are on Facebook or LinkedIn and there's a message and you're silently sitting there correcting the grammar and the spelling?
Not
there
me.
You go. Look, there's a few hands have gone up there. Yeah, we do. And what that means is we're not looking at the message. We're not taking in the message. So it's not about being snobby or that. It's just about removing those barriers for the client to hear or the prospect to hear what you're saying.
Gotcha. And so one more question on this as well. Danielle was saying about the millennials. Are they as picky about grammar? Like, do you speak their language if you're marketing to them, or do you worry about grammar?
They're not as worried about grammar. A lot of them do text speak and that. Interestingly, the ones that have kids are more interested in grammar. We change our focus. We completely change our focus when we have them. You know, so it's not, I say, it's not that I'm trying to turn you into corporates. That's not what it is. You can have really conversational language. Just make sure that it's punctuated properly. And here's why. What does a full stop do? What is the purpose of a full stop?
To stop you reading or pausing.
Yeah, and what does that pause enable you to do?
Think.
Absorb what that sentence was. If the one with the chaser, look at how long that sentence is. By the time you get to the end of that sentence, you've forgotten what was at the start of it. So you have to get it's the same when you're speaking. Have any of you ever had any public speaking training? Hands up if you haven't. Did they talk to you about non-words? Paul's nodding his head. What did they say to you, Paul, about non-words?
It depends what you mean by non-words. I mean, do you mean by sort of non-verbal communication or
as
I gotcha. Yeah.
Those types of things.
Irritating.
Well, what they do is they fill a space. And by filling a space, they don't give your audience time to absorb what you've just said. and your sentence rolls into one, and it's harder for people to concentrate. So your language and your messaging is important.
I actually have some empathy with what Gary's saying when he said that surely what you're saying is more important than your grammar. I understand why he says that. I understand why you say that, Gary. What I think though is that how you write something, it doesn't matter when you're speaking, but I think how you write it dictates how it reads back to you when you're reading it. Like, you might be thinking something in your head, but if I read it and it doesn't scan right, the message won't come through properly. And do you know what? When I got a copywriter to look over mine, not to write the content, I write the content, but just to edit it really. And I think it was really cheap. It was like, I can't remember, a couple of £100 or something. And I was really amazed. Like, he just changed a few tiny tweaks, just a few little bits and bobs, you know, like we're all professionals in our particular chosen subject, right? And if you're a copywriter, that's your thing. And just those tiny little tweaks and grammatical changes, and you put in a few, I don't know, grammar punctuation marks that I wouldn't have normally used, you know, like little dashes and things. And it just changed how the whole thing scanned. Yeah. So I would say, for the sake of a couple £100, just get it done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, we'll get off the grammar thing and stuff. Gary, sorry, I did pick on you there. But the whole thing is, confused customers do not buy. So how confusing is your website? How confusing is your message? Now, who here, I'm sorry, I've got the list on the other computer. Who here has the R&D tax credits company? Lawrence, your website, I think, is incredibly clear. It's really good. I looked through it, and I understand the R&D tax credit world. I did a project with an R&D tax credits company a few years ago. I read your website and I thought, actually, messaging spot on, language spot on. I came away thinking, I know exactly what they do.
Well, give us a ring and book a call. You know, but it's great you said that. Ollie and I were looking forward to the call today with you, because we parted ways with a marketing company who said that our website was the worst thing, and that customers they couldn't market it to customers. So
I would say that's a company trying to get money out of you to rebuild a website that you don't need rebuilt. So here's what somebody asked a message about: where does the website fit in? Right, just write this stat down. 86%. Just write that number down. 86%. Right. Over 86% of business-to-business purchasing decisions start with some type of recommendation or referral. In the business-to-consumer world, it's higher. But over 86% of business-to-business purchasing decisions start with some type of recommendation or referral. Now, that can be one of two ways. It can be, I've worked for you, you really like what I do, and I ask you if you could introduce me to other people that might be interested. That's one way. The other way, and I think this is a higher number, is you've got an idea, and this is why I think it's higher in the business to consumer world. You've got an idea. The first thing most people do is look and think about, do I know anybody that's done that? You know, it could be as simple as, I want to get a new kitchen. And they look and go, who do I know that's had a new kitchen? Who did they use? Yep. Groups like this, you'll go to your peers in this group and say, you know what, we need a new CRM system. What have you guys used? What would you recommend? And then what happens is, if somebody recommends you, then people tend to go to your website and have a look to see what you're about. What do you think? Do you think I'm talking rubbish? Do you think it makes sense?
No.
100% for me.
It makes a lot of sense to me. And I think what you were saying about the website is, you know, back at the beginning when you were talking about the difference between selling a product and like transactional and then consultative. So the website at the moment, so Doppler website generates no leads whatsoever. And all our leads come from word of mouth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then recommendations based on experience. So actually, we've recently been working with a web developer to look at how we can, like, what the site's purpose is. So this is really helpful because ultimately, you know, what the site's trying to be at the moment is consultative rather than transactional. So,
but I agree with that. But I've always treated a website as it's got to earn its keep. It's got to be part of the sales force. It's got to be, you've got to be able to track its performance. It's not just there as a calling card for you in your business.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to make it into a part of the sales function of your business.
Yeah, so when people then go, let's say Ollie recommended me and you go to the website, you want to come away from that website thinking, yeah, I should have a conversation with her. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Now, I know we're out of time and I've tried to cover a lot of stuff and I've maybe covered too many areas and got a bit stuck on Gary's grammar, but you know, let's bring it back into the sales arena. Have you guys got some thoughts from today or any questions that you want to ask me? Everybody's scared, no, Ollie?
Oh no. Gary, you got a question?
Yeah, I've always got a question. Design, is that important as well? Because, you know, it's like when you go to a website, if you see and it looks pretty, sometimes actually that does the talking for you, like a professional website compared to something else. Do you think that matters?
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably be better talking to a marketeer on that one, but I like clean spaces on the website. I like to be able to think of PowerPoints. You know, and a PowerPoint, the worst thing is a really busy PowerPoint. You know, I just keep it simple. Keep it simple where I can look at it and go, I get that. Pictures and diagrams, far better than words.
The transactional versus consultative thing, because most of my career coaching and recruitment stuff is all very consultative. But I've built an online interview course now, help people pass interviews, which is ideally, I don't want people to speak to me because that takes my time up. I just want them to buy the course. But the way, when you were doing your diagram, I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll create a form that they fill in about what is your problems with interviewing, what stresses you out. So that kind of feels consultative, even though I'm not there. That was my solution to it. But maybe actually is there another way I could get them get them to buy it without doing that?
No, do you know,
because my comfort zone is consultative. I'll just speak to everyone for hours.
You know what though? It's not a bad move to get them to do that, because then that's thinking about it. But maybe couch it around the fact that you're getting them thinking about it, and then it can be tailored to suit them. But no, I think that's quite a smart move, Rory.
Cheryl, Ed and Danielle got questions.
Right, Ed, where's Ed?
Hey Cheryl, thanks so much. That was really interesting. This is slightly more of a technical point, but what's your view on having, just to simplify a landing page or a website, just having an intro video or something that you can, that's perhaps a little bit more interactive in terms of...
Ed, I love a good video.
They're amazing, aren't they?
I love a good video. And it will hold I have the attention span of goldfish. You know, and a video, you know, a short video will hold my attention way more.
Okay.
The minute I have to click through a few things, it's like, oh, I'm bored with this now.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And also, your personality comes across in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love it. Right, Danielle?
Yeah, so I was just thinking on my feet that when I spoke to an SEO agency, they told me that people searching for things like consultancy and coaching is actually very low nationally. So the website kind of working without like somebody just searching and like being transactional, it seems pointless. So thinking about actually my scalable products, which are my book and my and the journals that we're creating. I was thinking about perhaps the website being tipped more to being transactional rather than being consultative. And given that I get my consultancy through organic, what do you think about that?
Again, not a bad move. I would suggest that what you need to do is figure out what is the central core, really simplistically, of what you're about. And then position the book and the journal for how they come off that. At the minute, there's not a lot of positioning on your website. It just looks like, you know, stickle brick. It looks a bit like stickle brick. Stick that in there and stick that in there. And so I think if you could figure out your core and how to articulate that, and then the other stuff, you can see how they come off it.
Okay.
You know, like I have Joe Wicks's book, cookbooks, because I know that Joe Wicks is about health and fitness. I know he's not Gordon Ramsay. I've got Gordon Ramsay's cookbook as well, a couple of those. But I bought I've got Joe Wicks's Lean in 15 and a couple of others because I'm focused on health and fitness, and I know he knows what he's doing in that arena. So the book then comes off that, if it makes sense. He's not positioning himself as a chef or an author. He's positioning himself off that.
So empowerment and growth doesn't come off for you then as the core in that offering?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll be, Danielle, I hope you're not thin-skinned. I came off it thinking it was very kumbaya. You know, or that's my term for fluffy. It was just, I just didn't really understand what it was. Was it mindfulness? Was it coaching? Was it business plans for startup? Was it a journal? I just didn't get it. So what is the thing that pulls all of those together? And that should be your messaging.
Thank you.
And then the other stuff spins off it.
I think Nicola had a question there, Cheryl.
Sorry, Nicola. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, really insightful. Thank you. We have been warming up like an email marketing list now for about 5-6 months, and we're getting pretty good engagement. We get some really good click-throughs, open rates. But ordinarily in a normal world, like when they start to be engaged, we would pick up the phone to them. But what we're finding with COVID is all the switchboards are pretty much closed down. So it's really hard to get someone on a call. What would you do rather than just keep bombarding them with emails? What else could we do to engage on a conversation?
Okay, LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn may be seen as a bit, but think about it. People are at home, they're in front of their computer, and the LinkedIn stuff is them. They'll open it. Like senior execs will open their LinkedIn messages, their PA won't open them. So, and because the reason that they don't let their PAs anywhere near their LinkedIn is because they also use that when they're job hunting. And they don't want anybody in the corporation to know that. So LinkedIn actually at the minute is a cracking way to get to people. Send in a message. And the key thing is, don't try, last thing that I'll talk to you about before we run out of time. There's a big difference in creating what I call a buying atmosphere versus a selling atmosphere. Okay. And if you can, in all of your messaging, in all of your business meetings, if you can create a buying atmosphere, goodness me, you're way down the road. You absolutely. And the buying atmosphere, let me explain what I mean. Have you ever decided that you're going to go in this shop? Remember when we could go in the shops? Have you ever thought about, I'm going to buy something? You've maybe done your research and you go in this shop to get it. And the second you walk through the door, the salesperson comes up and goes, can I help you? What do you say?
I'm just looking.
Exactly. No, thank you. I'm just looking. But we weren't. We were going in to get something. If the person came up and said, my name's Cheryl, if you need any help, give me a shout. I'll be over there. What are you more likely to do?
Ask if you need something.
Yeah, ask. You're more likely to engage with them.
Mm-hmm.
The second one created a buying atmosphere. The first one created the selling atmosphere where there's pressure. And there's a weird thing with human beings in that if we feel that we're going to be free to say no, we're more relaxed and we're more open-minded to saying yes. So when you are on LinkedIn or you're on the phone stuff, I always say, what are you trying to accomplish? Actually, the first sale that I want to make is a conversation. That's the first sale. I work in that consultative arena. The first sale I want to make is a conversation. So you'll often see things from me that say, you know, I'm not sure if there, you know, if there's anything that we could do together or not. The or not creates the buying atmosphere. So not sure if there's anything we could do there together or not, but it's probably at least worth a conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
Paul?
I just wanted to say to Nicola, I can relate to that because I've had that a lot with you can't call the head office to follow up the email. Just to spin it on his head though, one positive side of that I found is that I've actually been getting better response to direct emails, not proper marketing emails, but to personally written emails than I would have ever got in the previous time, because I think before most people were busy in meetings all day, and now people are mostly sitting at home, and I think they've got more time. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm able to perhaps put a little bit more time towards making sure my inbox hasn't got 10,000 messages in it. Do you know what I mean? I've been able to be a little bit more on top of things, and I think I've been getting much quicker responses to emails than I would normally. But I mean, I personally tend not to read HTML emails that have been sent out by MailChimp or something. It puts me right off. But I do tend to read ones that have been personally written to me. And so what I've been doing with those emails is thinking about the person. And the way I always think about it is, if you went up to someone you didn't know in a bar, for example, you probably wouldn't just walk up and start directly with your pitch. You might think of some kind of icebreaker conversation starter. So I tend to look at their website or have a little think about whether there's some connection between us, even if it might be, well, I just want to get in touch because I've been doing some work with one of your competitors and something came up, or I had a look on LinkedIn and noticed we've got a mutual connection. I noticed that you and I both know Tom. How funny! Where do you know Tom from? Or just something like that. And then say, look, I'm conscious I sent you loads of emails recently, but I just wanted to follow that with a personal one, just to see whether you've got 5 minutes for a quick chat. So that's what I've been doing. I'm not giving you a sales.
Paul, what you've just said is really good. And you've hit on something as well that you could just take a little bit further. So let's say, Paul, I want to get to Paul and Paul knows Tom. Mm-hmm. Rather than messaging Paul and saying, oh, I see we both know Tom, I'm going to contact Tom and say, how well do you know Paul? Mm-hmm. Would you feel comfortable introducing me to him? Mm-hmm. And if you do that, Paul's more likely to have a conversation. In LinkedIn, the second connections are the most powerful. Our first connections we can contact anytime. It's the second connections that are the most powerful.
One thing I'm noticing with my LinkedIn inbox is I am literally being bombarded with sales messages every day. And it's because it's just all in one long feed down. You get like 200-300 messages daily because all the bots are messaging people. I mean, I think what you're saying is correct.
You need to look at that then, because I don't get that.
Oh, I do. I get 100 messages a day. I've got a really good hack for every person here. If you haven't done it, by the way, on LinkedIn, sorry to jump in, but if you haven't done it, put an emoji before your first name or put your middle initial in your first name, because no actual person ever sends an email to me saying, "Hi, Thomas J." So you can just delete all of them instantly.
Ah, great tip. Well done, Thomas. Yeah, I don't know what I've got on my LinkedIn, but I probably get about 2 of those bot ones a day. That's it.
Yeah,
and then the rest are all messages from my contacts. I'm conscious of time, so I think we're done. But just like I say, if you remember nothing else, remember 2 things. Decide where you need to be on that spectrum and make sure your messaging is really simple and clear. You can build on those 2 things. But if you've got one of those 2 wrong, you could be doing a lot of work and going in the wrong direction.
Thank you very much, Cheryl.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, Danielle, look, tough, but clear. I'm sorry. You were just the unfortunate one that I grabbed your website.
All right, I'm going to go and have a cry now, and then I'll pick myself up and have a think. No, honestly, thank you. It's really useful.
Yeah, but what came through, though, is what I said to you, is your passion. I knew whatever you did it with passion. I just wasn't exactly sure what it was.
You're not the first person to tell me that, so definitely need to listen.
Good. All right. Well, look, if anybody wants to ask me anything further, Ollie and Gary and Harry have my details. They'll pass them on to you, no problem.
Thank you
But
very much.
I will love you and leave you, and I don't know if you guys chat afterwards or what, but I will say goodbye.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.